Today's episode of Rise and Reinvent features the incredible journey of Mario Pabaroue, a dynamic technology leader, entrepreneur, and living example of intentional growth. From stumbling through college and career pivots to leading with purpose, Mario's journey is a powerful reminder that reinvention often starts with failure. He opens up about navigating uncertainty, embracing change, and learning to prioritize self care while chasing success. This one's an honest, inspiring, and full of wisdom. So, for anyone ready to rise, this is the episode for you. So, tap in because when one of us rises, we all rise. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Mario Pabaroue, an emerging technology and business leader. Welcome to the show, Mario.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I know you have an interesting story to share with us today. And so, as we get started, I want to start by just asking you to describe yourself in 2 to 3 minutes. I want to hear not necessarily about just your career, but also your life and your journey.
Yeah. 2 to 3 minutes. Oh man. Mario Pabaru. Um, I guess career-wise, I'm a technology leader. I lead consulting teams. I work for a small consulting firm. Um, but from a personal level, I don't know. I'm not, you know, I'm not someone special, right? This whole idea of success, um. I haven't been on the Forbes, 30 under 30, 40 under 40 list, right? I haven't raised capital. I haven't sold a company. But one thing I have done throughout my life, um, I've focused a lot on intentional growth. Um, I grew up in rural New Jersey. I grew up in Cumberland County, second poorest county in New Jersey. Um, I didn't really know what I was going to do in my life. Stumbled into college, um, stumbled into graduation, right? Um, stumbled into my first corporate job too. But I think along the way, as I was preparing for this conversation, I think along the way, the common theme in my life is this idea of growing myself on purpose and being purposeful with that growth. Um, Hopefully, I don't know if that's a great introduction, but that's what I got.
That's wonderful. That's you. So
Yeah,
we'll take it. That's great.
yeah,
Um, One of the things I'd like to dig into is, you barely touched on your younger years, right? And
mm,
often what I find is that the younger years have a significant impact on your adult life,
yeah,
right? How you learned, how you interacted with family, whether family was around or not. And so can
yeah,
you talk a little bit about the young Mario
yeah,
and
yeah,
how that impacted you as an adult?
yeah. Great question. Young Mario had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. Young Mario was the man of the house because, father wasn't there, right? So single parent household. I had a little sister to take care of. Um, but truly had no idea. Had really no plan, right? I thought growing up and working at a movie theater or working at we're gonna redo that. I thought growing up and just sort of you know, staying alive, that was the definition of success. Um, but it's interesting. I wasn't really into school like that. School didn't really make much sense to me personally. I didn't really see the purpose of it. I knew I had to go, right? So throughout my young years, just going to school, kind of doing what I needed to do to pass classes. Um, I always knew I was smart though. I always knew I was intelligent. Um, I just didn't see the purpose of giving school everything I had. Um, until my I think my 10th grade year. And there was a class I took was personal finance. And I don't know, it just this idea of figuring out how to write checks and how to manage your money and how to budget, for other people it might have been boring, but for me it was very exciting. And that teacher, she recommended that I take marketing my junior year, and I was like, sure. So my junior year, I signed up for marketing one, and absolutely fell in love with that class. And I mean, her name was Valerie McDonough, my teacher, my marketing teacher. Oh my gosh, from day one, supply and demand and economics and all of it. And it just changed how I view school, to change it gave me just taking that class gave me an opportunity to really look into my future and really think through like, hey, what do I want to do? Um, Loved that class so much. I stayed after school and ended up competing in marketing competitions. I uh, came in first in regionals, came in first in states, ended up making into the international competition. The organization is called DECA, DECA. Um, and that sort of kind of paved the way for college for me. Um, so yeah, that's me. That's young me in a nutshell. Just kind of wandering around,
Okay.
head in the skies, trying to
So
figure it out.
was college a definite in your future, or was it something that you grew into, or how did you make that transition from high school and, having, I would say, limited goals, limiting yourself
Yes,
to
yes,
saying, I'm going to go to college and then having that experience around marketing in college?
yes. So funny story. Didn't I actually didn't choose marketing in college? There's a story to that one, but yeah. My mother deserves a lot of credit. She always sort of gave us an ultimatum. She was like, "Hey, you're either going to go to college or you're not going to live here in my house once you turn 18."
Okay.
So, in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, yeah, mom, whatever. But then as time was getting closer to graduation, I was like, oh, okay, I think she's serious. Um, but the idea of college and the realism of going to college didn't really manifest itself until I saw, I guess, success in marketing, or until I fell in love with school and I fell in love with learning, which came through that marketing class. And it just so happened the college I ended up going to, Johnson and Wales University, was a big sponsor of those marketing competitions. Um, so yeah, recruiter saw me there. I was like, hey, I think I'm interested, and that's how I ended up going to Johnson and Wales. Now, when it came to choosing my major, um, it was- that was interesting because I wanted to do marketing. I wanted to do business. I just literally just came off of going to the international competition for marketing, right? But something within me, um, I don't know. I saw engineering. I saw electrical engineering, electronics engineering. I saw that in the course catalog, and I thought to myself, I was like, all right, you know, I don't really know anyone who's an engineer. I don't really know anyone who has been an engineer. To me, at that point in time, engineers were like doctors, right? They were like lawyers. Especially coming from rural America, rural New Jersey, you have zero access to doctors and lawyers on a personal level, engineers on a personal level. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, if I can make it through uh, college in this course, I think I could set myself up pretty well. Not just for me, but for my family, for my
Mhm.
mother, for my sister. And that, you know, I ended up choosing engineering. I really, really, really wanted to do marketing, really wanted to do business, but I ended up choosing engineering. And that's sort of how that transition uh, happened. Um, and then my first year of college, I failed big time. So, uh, so yeah, yeah,
Okay. Well, let's talk
yeah.
about that. Let's go deeper on
Cliffhanger.
that. The main thing is, there's reinvention,
Yeah,
and there's also um, failure.
yeah,
There's also pivots. There's also all of these things that happen along the journey. And
yes,
so, okay, I'm following you along so far.
yes.
And then
Yes.
now you get to college and you say you failed. I want to hear
Yes.
about a time when
Yes.
you failed and
Yes.
what you went through and how you got
Yes.
out of that failure situation.
Yes. Yes. And again, I think the theme of today is, intentional growth, right? So sort of stumbling along and then, oh my gosh, I need to go to college. Oh my gosh, I need to put myself in a position to take care of my family. So here I am, college year one. Um, again, backdrop context, rural America, rural New Jersey, right? So no context or no understanding of life outside of, farmlands, right? So um, knowing where I came from, um, I made the decision to join a fraternity my freshman year, which is very, very difficult. Um, I ended up joining Kappa Alpha Psi, historically black fraternity. Um, so I dedicated my freshman year to pursue that, and everything was fine. Everything was great. The first semester, I think I looked at 3.0 or 3.2. Everything was fine. Like I'm really dedicated, right? I'm like, hey, I'm in college. I made it. Mama's proud of me. My church is proud of me. Community's proud of me. All of South Jersey, I'm representing. I'm pursuing Kappa. The guys like me. I'm really doing this. And I make it in. And I got a 3.0. I'm excited. Um, and then after I make it in, one thing I didn't know about as a child was priorities and how to make decisions based on your priorities. And I ended up prioritizing campus life and social life over my academics. Um, and it kind of ended disastrously, where ended up dropping all my classes end of that first year. Um, Again, kid from rural America. First, oh my gosh, Johnson Wells is in a city. It's in Providence, Rhode Island. So I'm in a city, new faces, new people. Now I'm in a fraternity. Now I'm at the top of the social ladder. And as a freshman, I'm like, oh my, and I'm an engineer, and I'm black. I'm like, yes, hey, yes, I am the guy. And
Right.
yeah, it's just the academics took a hit because of that. And got brought back to earth pretty quickly after that. Going into my second year, um, well, I guess part of the story of the first year was after I became part of the organization, I was immediately placed. Actually, no, that happened my second year. So, second year, right? Um, you know, I, the second year starts, and I'm placed as the president of the organization on campus. And I I don't know, I thought I knew how to do things, I thought I was ready for it and I wasn't, and ended up failing at that. And that took a toll emotionally. That took a toll confidence wise. Um, Not only that, my classes my second year was 10 times harder. So here I'm looking around at class and people are dropping off like flies. And, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I'm failing at being president of the fraternity. And it just, yeah, yeah. So second year was rough. Towards the end of the year, also dropped classes as well. So I essentially dropped out of school twice. Um, in college, experiencing nothing but failure the first 2 years. Um, so before continuing, any questions? Any, 'cause I'm just in college, and
Okay. Yeah, no. So what was the moment after 2 years of failure? What was
yeah,
that moment of transition and saying, "I've got to figure this out and move forward"? What would
yeah,
tell me about the experience, like what you felt in that moment?
yeah, yeah. So after dropping out the second time, I felt like crap. It's interesting. I called my mother and I was like, "Hey, mom, I don't know if this college thing is working out." She was like, "Well, you're not coming back here, so figure it out." So I was like, "Oh God, I guess I'm on my own." Uh, but I would say, what's interesting is that even though I failed at being president of a fraternity and everything, looking back, one decision that I am proud of was I was intentional about surrounding myself with other like-minded individuals who were about something. They were about achievement.
Mhm.
And within the fraternity, there was alumni that were living in the area. And I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, I'm really serious about doing this college thing. I'm really serious about graduating. I know my actions and my results haven't shown that, but I am serious and committed." And one of the alumni, they took me in, and um, greatest thing, greatest blessing, greatest thing to ever happen to me, because I got to learn what success looks like in the context of college and finishing college, and in the context of being a young man, being a young Black man, um, in the context of when someone tells you no, how do you handle that? How do you respond to adversity? And I never seen that before. I never had that before. Um, and so I learned a lot from this alumni, and learning those principles allowed me to make the change necessary um, to then eventually graduate college. So the college experience alone was just this crazy process of just being intentional and then failing, and then your confidence is just to the floor. It's at the floor, right? You're just like, oh my God, it's like, oh. But then also being intentional in regards to picking yourself up and putting yourself around the right people, and being intentional about doing the right actions to generate the right results. So,
Okay. Well, thank you for that story. The summary that I took from it is you failed a couple times.
yes,
You had the right people around you who knew what you needed to hear and knew what to tell you to do,
yes,
listened to their advice, and then you successfully graduated college.
yes. That is the short story of that, but yes.
How did that experience and failure in general shape the
Mm,
man that you are today?
mm. Um, well, I would say those principles that I learned from my alumni. His name is Morgan Bailey. I hope he gets to hear this podcast because he really changed my life. Um, the principles that I learned from him, they're still with me to this day. Principles of just because something doesn't work out, so I would go to the financial aid office. This is for an example. I'll go to the financial aid office, and I'll say, "Hey, I need more financial resources," and they would say, "Hey, I'm sorry, we don't have it." Morgan taught me, just because they say they don't have it right then and there doesn't mean that that's the end all be all. Tomorrow, go back and ask the same question. If you get the same answer, that's fine. The day after that, go back and ask the same question. And you keep going back. You keep knocking on the door. You let them know who you are. You do not stop until you get the answer you need to move forward. And that type of perseverance, I never knew that was a thing. And um, I would say those foundational principles have yielded me great results and have stuck with me to this day. So I would say perseverance, uh, just being willing to change, self accountability. Um, uh, those are the core three principles that that are still with me today.
Okay.
Mhm.
What strategies have helped you to navigate and embrace uncertainty rather than resist it?
Well, that's a great segue to the next chapter of this story, corporate America. Um, so long story short, so graduated, right? I ended up landing a job in Kansas City, working for a Fortune 500 company, Kansas City, Missouri. And it's interesting how things work. Um, I was placed on a team that did not match. my skill sets did not match the team. Meaning I was skilled in one area of engineering, but I was placed on a team in a completely separate area that I never even had an ounce of training on, an hour of training, never took any classes, nothing. And it was a sink or swim environment. And that first year, uh, I I I failed that first year. I failed at swimming. Um, and I failed at swimming because I was not willing to be adaptable.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I thought that, for the first year, my mindset was, hey, this is not my skill set. Hey, I don't know anything about this technology. What am I doing here? What, like, I need to find something else. I need to move on. I need to do something else. Um, but learning those principles from Morgan, right, from college, right, perseverance. Um, I decided to stay, and this ties back into the intentional growth. Um, I decided to stay. I decided to um, continue to figure out what to do. And one day it clicked. One day I realized, I was like, wait a minute. Um, there's YouTube. There's online videos. There's books. Um, why am I sitting here complaining about the cards that were dealt to me, right? Why am I sitting here why am I complaining? Why am I This is a blessing. This is amazing. I made it from rural America, rural New Jersey to a Fortune 500 company. And I'm sitting here complaining because I didn't land where my skill sets were, not realizing that I can be intentional and grow the skills needed to be successful uh, on that team and in that role. And just for context with um, that team was so hard um, that I think we started with 8 people, and I think within 2.5 years we were down to 3. So I'm talking being on call 24/7. I'm talking, everyone's going to you to have an answer, it was a healthcare technology firm. They did like EMRs, so it was a healthcare technology firm. So this is the most complex data, the most complex type of engineering you could possibly imagine. And um, yeah, I had to learn how to be adaptable in that chapter of my life. So I hope I answered your question. Um,
You did. You
I did.
did.
Great,
Definitely.
great.
Yes. One of the things I have observed, especially in corporate America, is the only constant is change.
Mm,
Whether it's a new technology, whether
mhm,
it's a new competitor,
mhm.
there's always change. And so often adapting requires certain specific skills. And it sounds like for you, that was around, core values and your
Yes,
beliefs, but
yes,
also learning, continuous
yes,
learning and development.
yes. And being open to that. I think for the first few years, I was not only did I not realize that I could grow and I can take it upon myself to actually learn the skills needed, but actually choosing to do that and being open to. I throughout my journey, I've come across individuals where they're just not willing to expand how they see things. And
Mm.
I think the first step just being open to look at something differently than what you're used to. Yeah. So,
Okay. So when I think about reinvention, right, you've
mhm.
reinvented yourself from a youngster
These are great segues. This is great. I love this. Go
to
ahead.
to college, and then
Yes.
from college to corporate, and then
Yes.
from corporate to leader
Um,
of people and organizations.
mhm.
Would you say is the one thing you wish more professionals knew about reinventing themselves?
Um, to not be scared of the risks of reinvention. Um, it's a great segue to the next chapter here. You remember when I mentioned that I loved marketing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, part of the reason why I loved marketing and I loved business was people, and I loved communicating with people. And the downside to engineering is oftentimes, especially computer engineering and electrical engineering, and oftentimes you're by yourself and it's just you and your computer. And so 4 years into this role as this engineer for this Fortune 500 company, I found myself just not happy, and um, so I ended up making transition to sales, corporate sales, and I fortunate enough to be placed in the sales training program. It was a 6 month program, very rigorous. The company invests about $1 million for each cohort. I think only 8 people make it per cohort. So to be an engineer and then to make it into that core, and it was a fast track to executive experiences. But he made it into the program, 6 month program, and at the end of the program, I essentially failed, and I was not able to continue. Um, and at that point in time, I was completely I was exhausted. I'd given everything I had. All these intentional growth, all this transformation in the engineering space, right? Adapting, learning, and then to make it into this extremely difficult cohort, and then to give 6 months again, adapting, learning, and then to not have made it in, to not have graduated that program. I was really exhausted, and I ended up leaving the company um, with no plan, with relatively no savings and or little savings. And a colleague of mine, he was starting a consulting firm, and he was like, "Hey, come be a partner with me." And I was like, "You know what? Sure, let's do this. Let's figure this out." Um, no one ever told me that entrepreneurship is insanely difficult, um, painfully difficult, painfully difficult. And ended up reinventing myself, going from engineer to sales, now to being an entrepreneur. And I mean, there's times where there's months where I went without pay. I lost, lost things and cars, and it was a painfully difficult experience. And all because I was trying to reinvent myself, and I was trying to get closer to this core of who I knew I was, but I wasn't there yet. Again, marketing, right? Go from marketing to then engineering, and then, now corporate America, and, and now entrepreneur. And I think when it comes to reinvention, I think that one thing I wish, everyone would not be afraid of is, don't be afraid of the risks. Don't be afraid of the challenge. Um, don't be afraid of not knowing what comes next. Um, yeah, yeah, because what you'll find on the other side is probably something amazing. So,
Okay. So if you could give your younger self advice
mm.
at the start of a major transition, because you've been through many, what advice would you give?
At the start of a major transition, oh man, I would say along this journey, take it all in, appreciate everything. Um, don't just chase the big diamonds. Don't just chase the gold. Um, Great segue. Next chapter to that. Ended up getting landing a job in a consulting firm. So the business failed. So this is a common theme of my life here is like trying new things, failing, failing, trying new things, failing, reinventing, failing, intentional growth, failing. Um, but had the opportunity to work for a consulting firm and uh, big firm. Because of all the skills I built up, I kind of created a unique role for myself in that firm. And um, I was just heads down, heads down. And at that point in time, I was engaged. I was getting ready to get married, and um, I don't know, life just moved so fast. And I look back, and that time, that first year of my marriage, and that time, it was a lot of it was a blur, because I was so heads down, so trying to just prove something to myself because I just failed this business and prove something to my soon-to-be wife, like, hey, I'm actually a stable person. All the instability you saw in entrepreneurship, that was just because I was an entrepreneur. But here I am with the job, and I'm stay. I can do this. I can be a great husband. I can, and I was just so heads down, and didn't I didn't appreciate the details. I didn't stop to I didn't call my mother, right? This person that has pushed me all these years, right, to and helped me become who I am. Didn't really call her that much. Didn't really speak to my sister that much. I work late nights, after we got married, work late nights, late nights. I was taking on every project I could. My health suffered, I gained weight. So I never really slowed down to appreciate the details and to work on the details. And I would say that would be the one advice I would tell my younger self is no matter what you're pursuing, um, don't let the details fall by the wayside because those are the details that make it worthwhile. Um, so yeah, great question.
Thank you. I also heard there mention of your mother and the
Hmm.
people surrounding you, your fiance.
Yes,
And so surrounding yourself with people and making sure you remind them, give them their flowers when you can,
yes,
right?
yes,
Is
yes,
that part of
yes.
taking it all in?
Yes, yes, 100%, 100%. Because, especially when you're driven, right? Again, going back to intentional growth, going back to reinvention, going back to, trying to prove something. When you're on this journey and you're trying to make something of yourself, it is so easy to make it to make your life all about you. And it's so easy to get caught up in your wants, your needs, your desires, your failures, your successes. Um, but I think the real treasure is in creating time to give people their flowers. Remember the fraternity from way back when? I spent years without contacting my fraternity brothers, spent years without talking to Morgan, spent years and the friendship suffered because of that, because I was so focused on me. And yeah, no, give those relationships their flowers. Give yourself flowers. Take time for yourself. Take trips, go on a self spa date, like give flowers when and where you can, no matter what you're pursuing. And you'll find that what you're pursuing doesn't really is not as great as what you have right in front of you. So, yeah.
So it's funny that these transitions, I promise you, were not planned ahead of time. But my next question was going to be, and it still is, how do you balance ambition with
Mhm.
wellness and self-care? You personally.
Mm. Ooh. Um, I'm still trying to figure that out. Balance transitional self-care. That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out.
How do
I
you
think
take time for yourself?
yeah, well, morning routine. I've I've started to invest in a morning routine. started to invest in a evening routine. I journal. I journal a lot. This is my journal right here, this leather journal. I
Yeah.
reflect on my day, every day, reflect on my day. I reflect on my week, every Friday, or excuse me, every Sunday. I reflect on the week before, wins, losses. I plan out the week ahead. Um, I reflect on the year, um, and I also reflect on the decades. Um, so a lot of reflection. Um,
Is that healing for you? Because it sounds a little bit like ambition, not self-care
mm,
as much, right?
interesting.
So in those
Yeah,
moments when you just need a moment for yourself,
yeah,
you've
yeah,
been going hard. What do you do to care for yourself? And if you say nothing, it's a challenge.
yeah. That's a great question. That's really that's really where I am in life right now. Um, is this idea of self-care, you know? So we just spoke about giving flowers, and that's um, so you're creating time for others, right? But then I never knew this was a thing, right? Creating time for yourself, and that's sort of where I am now in this stage of my career, this stage of my life is what does that begin to look like? I've been so ambitious, I've been so head focused. The advice I would give to my younger self is, hey, don't be so ambitious. Take it easy. You know? Um, but I don't know. I know that I am traveling more. So because I've started reaching back out to friends, a friend of mine is opening a school in Liberia this summer, and they invited me out for the grand opening. So I'm excited for that. Uh, I don't know. I don't. I need to
It's
figure that
okay.
out. Can you help
And
me
that's
with
okay.
that, Nicole?
Yes,
I
I
need to.
can. I can. Maybe not in the remaining time, but right after we can get together for sure. Because what I've found is, we spend so much of our life focused on our career and our work. Um, and also, I always think about the airplane security video where they say, put your mask on first before you take care of others.
Mm,
And so sometimes that may feel selfish, but
mhm,
it is just so important because if I'm not doing well, I'm tired, I'm stressed, then I don't perform well at work or with my family.
mhm.
Um, and so it's important, and I will definitely help you work through that after this call.
Great, great. Because yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's one thing my wife, my sister, everyone around me has been bringing up is, hey, create time for yourself. I started with the morning routines, evening routines. You know, I, but here's the thing: is it's so easy for me to fall back into work mode. It's so easy for me to, all right, got it. Hey, Monday morning, gotta go. Friday or Sundays, I'm already planning out the week. So that is a great question. That's a
Well,
wonderful
thank you.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think back on my days too. Not that this is anything about me, but um, it was always work, work, work until a family
Mm,
member said to me, um, what do you think about the fact that you're spending more time with your job than your family? And I was
mhm.
like, "What? Are you kidding me? I do this for my family." But it was
Yep.
true. It was true. I would be in back-to-back meetings all day, and then in the evening, I had to catch up on my action items from those meetings. And
Mm,
then I gave my kid a kiss goodnight, made sure he had dinner, and then I got back on the computer again.
mm,
And so it was like I ended up having health complications as a result of that.
mm,
In that moment, I said, I don't ever want to be there again, where I'm
mm,
putting my career ahead of my wellness, my well being, my family.
mm,
I don't want to do that. And so I made conscious decisions to make changes in life in order
mm,
for that to happen. And so now my
mm.
friends are like, oh, you're around more. Are you available? Yep, yep.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so we'll definitely work on that. Okay, so my
Awesome.
final question for you
Mhm.
is what is your personal definition of success? What does that look like for you?
That's another good question. and it's changed over the years. Um, Interestingly enough, I think what success looks like for me now is applying intentional growth to what we just spoke about. You know, that self wellness. You know, what does it look like to give back to myself and to give back to others too? That's part of the reason why I said yes to this. I'm like, hey, this is something new, something I need to actually do. I need to begin to the process of sort of just giving back, however I can. So yeah, success for me now, continue to grow career wise, of course, but to not let that be the only thing that I stand on. Um, to be able to have memories with friends and fraternity brothers, and to build new relationships and new experiences like this one here. To give myself flowers, to continue to give loved ones flowers, and um, kind of see where it goes from there. Yeah, yeah,
Well, now you also have the Rise and Reinvent podcast to share with your network to hold you
yes.
accountable to that. So, for the people who are watching this and who love and care about Mario, hold him accountable for that self care. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun, and I'm so grateful for you and for your time. You have an incredible story, and it sounds like there's so much more to come. And so I would love to stay connected, and I wish you all the best in your career and in life.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, we'll definitely stay connected because I need help on this giving flowers portion, So no.
I got you. I got you. All
Awesome. Well,
right.
thank you so much.